First reading is from Psalm 19, verses 1 to 4. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the world. Second reading is Psalm 139. And that's verses 1 to 18. O Lord, you have searched me and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you know it completely, O Lord. You hem me in behind and before. You have laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. When I awake, I am still with you. Amen.
Wonderful. Thanks, Adele. By the way, in our hurry to get going this morning as we welcomed you, and you may not even know that I'm the minister here. My name is Ralph Ward, and it's lovely to welcome you to our church this morning. A couple of big things have happened, like space-wise, in the last week or two, all right? First one, and you may have witnessed it, last week it was on like the local news and everything, there was a particularly big moon thing happened, yeah? Yes. Yeah, and it was called the Buck Moon, he said carefully, and it's larger than usual, okay? So the moon is at what's called its perigee. I used to know all these posh words because I used to be a navigator in the Navy. I've forgotten most of it. Perigee is where the moon is closest to the earth. Apogee is where it's furthest away. And it's been like really near. The nearest it's going to get this year, last week. And I think it was it Thursday night when it was biggest of all? And on Spotlight and whatnot, they told us to go and look out for it. So me and Adele went down onto the seafront at 10 o'clock. That's when it was due to come up. We weren't the only people there. There were people there who were watching this great big, really orange moon come up. And the weather wasn't too bad. There was a bit of cloud, but it was big enough to see it. And as it got higher in the sky, it got more and more shiny and white and impressive. And I'd actually seen it by accident the night before when I was drawing the curtains on my front room, looked out and I could see this amazing moon up there in the sky, really dazzling bright, shining up its reflection on the sea. Really awesome. If you're on holiday and you're down here for the week, look out for all these wonderful things that happen around here across Mounts Bay. There are some glorious sights to see. But it did occur to me that unless I'd bothered looking out of my front door, I wouldn't have seen it. It would have just gone unnoticed. I'd have missed a real big God event. And that's the thing. Whether you believe in God or not, it's like when stuff like that happens, I can't not believe in God. It's like you might say, oh yeah, it's just the moon, Ralph, it just comes up, goes around the earth, goes down. Yeah, but how come it's beautiful then? This is what gets me all the time. The biggest reason, I think, there's all sorts of reasons why I believe that there's a God, but one of the real big ones is, How come we can appreciate something that's beautiful? And how come things are beautiful? And you see beauty in all sorts of things, like in this enormous orange moon, in the stars at night, in some of the sunsets we get round here across Mounts Bay. And just by looking at these two beautiful twins, you can see, can't you, that they're the product of an amazing God who likes to create beautiful things and likes us to appreciate the beauty of beautiful things. As we look around at people, whether they're family or friends or whatever they are, we see the beauty in them, no matter what age they are or anything like that. We see that beauty. And sometimes we forget to notice it, which is really annoying. But in the Psalms there, Psalm 19, it talks about the heavens declare the glory of God. When you look at the moon, when you look at the sun, when you look at the coastline, when you look at the stars at night, it's all shouting, there's a God, and he made this, and he's here. All right? And we kind of ignore it at our peril. At the beginning of the book of Romans, which wasn't read to us just now, Romans chapter 1, Paul is starting this big sort of argument that God loves us so much that he came and gave his life for us. And that we really needed that to happen because we're in a proper state. And he says, the trouble is people have got involved in just doing their own thing, living selfishly, destroying my creation, destroying each other. And you believe me, surely, you look around at the fact that we've got, like an amber warning, could be a red warning, heat wave coming up. That's climate change. We've done it. You look at the fact that there's a war going on in Ukraine and thousands of people are being killed and slaughtered and displaced from their homes. And you think, human beings can be pretty awful, really. And that's why Jesus needed to come. But at the beginning of Romans, it says, the fact is, all through history, we've been able to see that there's a God. He's shown it in his creation, in the things that he's made. It's plainly seen. So none of us have got any excuse, really, for not believing in him. It's just that we can't be bothered half the time. We get on with our lives. Sometimes we're really busy. We're really focused. We don't look up. Sometimes we walk down the street and our heads are too much in our phones to even see what's going on around us. Some years ago, I had like a real epiphany moment, you know what I'm talking about, where you suddenly realise something that you really hadn't quite given anyone, let alone God, the credit for. I was up in the Lake District on a hiking holiday and I was camping on my own. I do like camping on my own in one of them tiny little tents that looks like a body bag. And I was up there and there was like no one else around. It was this really remote lake in the Lake District, the highest lake as it goes. Wasdale, it's called, if you've ever been up there. And I was camping just in this farmer's field and there was no other tent but mine. So there was just a farmer's field, amazing mountains, amazing lake, and a pub. And I'd been in the pub, and I'd had a few pints, and then I got into me little bivvy bag. And of course, whenever you go camping, you know this yourself if you've ever been camping. It doesn't really matter how much or how little you've had to drink before you go to bed. In the middle of the night, you can pretty much guarantee you will need to get up and have a wee. And so, sure enough, middle of the night, hey up, I've got to get up. And then usually the hardest thing to do is find the zip on your tent. It's like I've started bringing a head torch just so I can find it in the middle of the night. Unzipped the tent, went out there, no one around, up, completely still night, completely clear sky. And I'm stood there doing what needed to be done. And I looked up at the sky, which was full of stars. Full of stars. Now, bear in mind, I was so far up in the Lake District, there wasn't any habitation apart from the pub for miles and miles. There was no light pollution, as they call it. And you could see, in a manner that I imagine if you stood on Chapel Carn Bray, you could probably see at night on a clear sky. And the longer I looked, the more it seemed like there were more points of light than there were black bits in between. But the black bits in between, space, was so inky black, and the stars were so twinkly bright. And I just stood there in awe and thought, God's made this. God's made this for me to look at tonight. And I was changed at that point, forever. An appreciation that God does these massive things, like the big moon coming up. The other thing that's happened out in space recently, in the past few weeks, is we've got a new space telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope. All the time I've been trying to remember the name of the space telescope so I could say it accurately. And I've kept wanting to say the James Warren Space Telescope. But then I've had to remind me that Warrens are the pasties. And then to think, Warren's, pasty, no, Webb. So the James Webb Space Telescope is the most powerful telescope ever made. And it's out there in space, more powerful than the Hubble Space Telescope, which has been sending us back amazing images of space for years. And the first images have come back from the James Webb Space Telescope. If you've got a minute, go and have a look on the NASA website and you can see them. And they are stunning. And there's one in particular, which is from right across the universe, much further than we've been able to look before in such detail. Ultra high resolution picture of a nebula. And it's gloriously coloured. It's absolutely awesome to look at. There's so much going on in it. And what a nebula is it's basically a dying star system. And when a star dies, it makes these amazing colours. It's like a big sunset as a star goes down. And I look at those pictures, and that says to me, God has made this, and more than that, God wants us to find it, because it's fantastic. And it seems to me that the more powerful telescopes we make, the more we can see of God's creation. And it's almost like God is saying, yep, I knew you'd make that telescope. I knew you'd better see this sooner or later. It's been waiting for you all this time. Enjoy it. I feel like God is saying to us all the time, look for me, look for me, look for me. Keep looking and you'll see more. I was at Wesley Rock this morning, a bloke came up to me and he says, I'm the sort of bloke who can't believe in it until I've seen it. And I'm like, well, look for it then. You won't find it unless you look for it. Jesus said, ask and you will receive. Seek and you will find. Isaiah 55 says, seek the Lord while he may be found, which is now. If you go looking, you'll find him. It's subtle. It's in the detail. It's in the book moon, which if you didn't happen to be out there at 10 o'clock, you wouldn't have seen. It's in the deep space nebula, which if you don't have the telescope, you can't see. But now we can. And God's saying, yeah, I've done this, and it's bigger and it's better than you ever imagined it would be. In Psalm 8, David, the guy who wrote most of the Psalms, who obviously thinks about this stuff a lot, because he writes about it a lot, he says, when I think about how amazing the stars, the cosmos is, I can't help but think, who am I? Who am I in all of this? Billions of light years across. Do you even think of me, God, compared to all the vastness and awesomeness of what you've made? And the answer is, yes, he does think of me. He thinks of me a lot. And here's a scientific fact, all right? Some people say, how is it that the universe is so enormous? There must be other life in the universe. There might be. We've got absolutely no evidence of that at the minute. The chances are, though, what if we are completely alone? What if the universe, enormous as it is, and expanding all the time, as it is, at the speed of light, what if we're the only life? And what if humanity, distinct as we are from every other species, what if we're the best thing that God has ever made? What if? How important are we? But why would he make such a massive universe? Well, here's the facts. In order for you and I to exist, there has to exist a number of basic elementary particles. And one of those things is carbon. We are carbon-based life forms. We cannot exist without carbon. Yes, you're full of it. Carbon. Do you know how carbon comes into being? It needs a universe to be 10 billion years old. That's because that's how long it takes for the first stars to burn out and form the nebulas in which carbon is formed. So there's no carbon for the first 10 billion years of the universe. Then it starts to form in the dying stars, which you can see if you go on the NASA website when you get home. That carbon then has to travel and be scattered around the universe, and it takes a further 5 billion years for it to form into stars and solar systems. Without carbon, they can't exist. That means that the universe has to be 15 billion years old before any of us could exist. It also means because the universe is expanding at the speed of light, it has taken 15 billion years for the universe to be big enough for us to exist. All of that, just for you. How important are you? A universe so vast, so that you could exist. How important, how special, how beloved. God has made an enormous, huge universe so that these two little girls could stand here today. Yes, you. That's how special you are. And if there's any doubt about this, Psalm 139, which Adele read to us, says, wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, God is watching over me. He saw me before I was born. He knows how long I'll live. He knows my potential. He knows all the things I will achieve in life. He knows what I'm worried about. He knows what I'm happy about. He knows my joys, my sorrows, my triumphs, my tragedies. And throughout it all, even when I've been bad and done bad stuff, he still loves me. And nothing can separate me from his love. It goes on and on and on forever. And this whole creation that he's made wound up at one point of time with his own son giving his own earthly life to save us from ourselves.